I am sure that Baby John is not going to be that bad that it makes it to this list. And with Viduthalai not having subtitles in theaters, I was slightly frustrated. So this is me venting out my frustration with all of you. I am absolutely grateful to be in a place in my life where I can do this for a living, watch movies, articulate my feelings regarding its impact, and in turn, hopefully, build a community of people who have the same interest and can share the joy with me or why they cheered and clapped and whistled in the theater. When it comes with building this community, it's also not just to share the joys and happiness with all of you, but also the torture, misery, and grief. Like marriages, we are in this together, in sickness and in health. You also please let me know the movies that made you have an existential crisis this year. Movies so bad that you wondered who in their right mind got so many resources together to make sure this becomes a reality. So here is Tried&Refused Productions with top 10 worst Indian movies of 2024. Number 10 goes to Aranmanai 4. I am absolutely blown away by the fact that the same director who made Anbe Sivam has more or less resorted to dedicating his life in directing meaningless horror comedies that test the patience of the audience. Who am I to say anything when the god-awful Aranmanai 4 actually goes on to do close to 100 crore in its theatrical run? The fourth installment of this franchise that never seems to end has the tonality of a Raghava Lawrence horror comedy like Kanchana. They are loud, crass and all over the place. The film actually had all the potential to be an interesting story regarding supernatural elements, but its comedic elements are so irritating. I wondered why I even thought it was a good idea to watch it on a streaming platform. I usually find Yogi Babu endearing, but my god did he get on my nerves with this film. A ghost that can be identified by Instagram filters, an elderly woman trying Paresh Rawal flirting tactics from Welcome, racist punchlines like Yogi Babu calling someone Black Thunder, and a bootleg Dementor's defense against the dark arts final climax makes it absolutely baffling for me to see such content is actually clicking with the audience. It's so bad that it's good? No, it's just bad. The only silver lining probably being Rashi Khanna and Tamanna Bhatia dancing to songs. Number 9 goes to Eh Watan Mere Watan. There is a point where you keep on betting on the same horse that is just not physiologically designed to come in the pole position. There is a point where it is defined as insanity if you keep betting on the same horse, hoping for a different result. Make of what you will with this analogy. Eh Watan Mere Watan is a film that should have just been an inspiring story based on real events on an unsung hero of our freedom struggle. But it just exposed the opportunity versus nepotism debate with Hindi cinema, where clearly less than competent actors are handed over meaty roles, which in turn lead to the quality of the film suffering tenfold. The film never transports us to a different era, most of the film being shot in curated sets, the gimmicky British imperialist officers who sported leather overcoats in the heat of Bombay. The film eventually became stale and generic with its approach, and as Sara attempted to inspire us by shouting "Karo ya maro," it just made me wonder whether a different actor would have made this film slightly watchable. Number 8 goes to Singham again. With all the resources available, with the entire cast at your disposal, with you wanting to adapt the most celebrated sacred text, and Singham again being the final result of it all, is truly embarrassing. The movie is a case of a director not evolving, living in delusion thinking that he knows the pulse of the audience. So much so that he will not only provide you who will feature in the cameos in the movie, but also the manner in which they will arrive, snatching away from you even the beauty of experiencing this film, no matter how over the top and generic it may be. We had cameos of actors overacting to the point of it being embarrassing, and Arjun Kapoor standing out in a cast that features the likes of Ranveer Singh, Deepika Padukone, Ajay Devgan and Akshay Kumar. The film deserves all the criticism flung its way for just simply being a poorly designed mass entertainer and a wake-up call for all those who were involved in it. Number 7 goes to Mr. Bachchan. In an era of terrible remakes, Mr. Bachchan has to really make it to the list of the worst ways to adapt a perfectly engaging, understated and realistic tale. Mr. Bachchan is a remake of Raid starring Ajay Devgan. When you see the visuals and just the sharp contrast of the manner in which it is adapted, I was hurled abuses first looking at the trailer because I called out its unnecessary mass treatment. When the film came out, people realized that it was worse than they had imagined. Unnecessary comedic gags, slow motion action set pieces, and innumerable dance numbers for a movie that is aimed to be an investigative thriller regarding income tax raids. Mr. Bachchan was less about the case at hand and more about the romantic equation between Ravi Teja and Bhagyashree, which was uncomfortable to say the least. A terrible film that the Telugu audience should call out for its lack of quality, and they did with its box office revenue, versus defending it under the guise of mass entertainers. Number 6 goes to Kanguva. I really feel for Suriya fans who are still waiting for his blockbuster return to the big screen. While he brought gems to us during the pandemic, Kanguva was supposed to mark the return to the big leagues. But everyone warned us of Siva's vision and how inevitably it will falter. And Kanguva followed the same pattern. The film had some of the most cringeworthy gags and references in its portrayal of bounty hunters in the present day, had our ears bleeding with the screeching and shouting of the tribes, and probably had the most irritating emotional arc regarding the child who has lost his parents. I travelled along this journey only admiring the scale of the film and what Suriya was dedicating in terms of physicality and the grit required in his performance, but it lacking any heart eventually got on my nerves, making it a shouting match I eventually wanted to storm out of. A forced cameo in the end made people realize this saga will in no way get a part 2, and honestly, we don't need one either. Number 5 goes to Bade Miyan Chote Miyan. This was supposed to be the return of Akshay Kumar to the action genre, the return to the genre he made so popular in the 90s. The high-octane action spectacle his skill set deserves, and what we got was what we anyway should have expected from the same production company that brought us Gunpat. A film so stale in its execution that it extracts a boring performance from Prithvi Raj as the villain, giving random speeches on Pralay every excuse he gets. Akshay, known for his comic timing, is overshadowed by Tiger Shroff, having most of the gags. Manushi Chillad is found in the most bland role, while Alaya F in probably her most irritating one, lusting over Tiger most of the time and reassuring us that she is highly intelligent. How? Arey dude, she says nerd is life. Other than Akshay doing a Raju pose, nothing was a highlight. This was truly embarrassing, with Ashwathama being cancelled for Pooja Entertainment with Shahid Kapoor. I wonder what holds for their future now. Number 4 goes to Family Star. Abysmal is an understatement. Directed by Parshuram, this film attempts to showcase Govardhan as a perfect man. Every woman in the film lusts over him, and everything he does is for his family. A romantic relationship where a woman gets slapped for writing a thesis on a middle-class man, only to dedicate his entire life to prove her wrong, that he indeed can become rich and powerful. It is revealed actually that the dream job Vijay has landed, Mrunal, is actually the daughter of the owner of the company. Mrunal has inherited in this movie an infrastructure company, but in the first half of the film is pursuing anthropology and writing a thesis on a middle-class man. Make it make sense. Vijay as the hero threatens a goon that his family also has men who can do things to the goon's women without asking. Yes, this is a mass dialogue in the film. The film becomes an absolute cringe fest in its latter half, where it shifts to USA and Vijay showcases his architectural skills and eventually makes up with Mrunal as she randomly is about to get married to someone with political influence. Awful is the word, and the trajectory of Vijay's career post Dear Comrade just makes me sad. Number 3 goes to Indian 2. There is nothing more heartbreaking than to see your favorite creator lose touch and become a mere shadow of his former self. Indian, directed by Shankar, was one of the most effective and understated films that actually laid focus on an elderly vigilante who executed his missions in the most slick and convincing ways. However, the return of Indian became an unintentionally funny joke, a movie so bizarre and so out of touch that it made audiences, especially the Tamil audience, wonder, how did Shankar and Kamal Hassan not even at the slightest introspect and wonder where they may have gone terribly wrong in making this venture? The art of Varmakalai turning villains into effeminate dancers, horses who gallop across the city, became a headache to sit through. As Kamal Hassan flexed in front of goons with the most terrible prosthetics, one couldn't help but look away as the legend was partaking in such embarrassing action set pieces. One is genuinely scared about Indian 3, even though the visuals look way more promising than the active dumpster fire we saw in theaters. Number 2 goes to Doubly Smart. This is when you lack complete objectivity and create a sequel of a franchise that had no business even existing. A terrible commercial film which has the leading hero hip thrusting his way through music videos, has him more or less harassing the heroine as a means to flirt, has one of the most unintentionally funny villains in the form of Sanjay Dutt, and a mother sentiment angle that is going to make you face palm to eternity. If you thought Ram Pothineni's Skanda was bad, this takes the cake of being 10 times worse. The makers assumed that the audience is so dumb that they really thought a Shiva imagery could save this film. Creating parallels of a rowdy leading man who commits crimes in society with a revered god like figures like Shiva in Telugu cinema does not get enough criticism. Imagine having a subplot so bad that the makers have to remove it while the film is still in theaters. The subplot of Boca for comedic gags as he harasses and intends to women is still one of the most tone-deaf and terrible things to grace cinema in decades. Number 1 goes to you know exactly which film I'm talking about. A film that was so loud, so obnoxious, and so terribly acted that it did everything in its might to create a perception that it's a pan-Indian spectacle, on the verge of becoming a blockbuster, doing everything in its might to silence the people and their opinions, including mine. This movie actually became a huge blot for the state and for those who are genuinely striving towards creating good cinema. The makers and the actors should be ashamed of themselves for assuming that all of us are dumb and would lap up the most tone-deaf and outdated storytelling. It's 2024. Rather than aping what is already successful, if you actually spend time on working on your script and even basic logic of a screenplay, you wouldn't have to resort to such bullying tactics and people would have given you credit where it is due. You know which film I'm talking about? It genuinely was one of the worst few days dealing with them behind the scenes, and deservedly, they get the first spot in the worst movies of 2024. I can't wait for the sequel, by the way. That is, if you have the funds to make it. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what were your worst Indian movies of 2024. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handles are right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.